Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and we're here today with special guest, Marla Mervis-Hartmann, who's here to share with us her new book, Befriend Yourself: Finding Freedom with Food and Peace with Your Body. So what if your path to food freedom and body confidence isn't about control at all, but about becoming your own best friend? Well, today's guest is here to share with us just that. Marla Mervis-Hartmann is the creator of Love Your Body, Love Yourself, helping women embrace self-acceptance and heal their relationship with food and body image. Her personal transformation through self-compassion now fuels her work as a coach, speaker, and Reiki master. Marla leads Body Love Reiki circles and serves as a body image expert at Journey Malibu Rehab Center. A TEDx speaker and passionate advocate for women's wellness, Marla draws on her background in Tantra, yoga, postpartum care, and lifestyle coaching. So welcome to the show, Marla Mervis-Hartmann.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
My goodness, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. What inspired you to write this?
My story of healing my relationship with my body and food it's not a unique story. What I found is there are so many, specifically women out there who are really challenged with diet culture and emotional eating and obsessing about their bodies. And so I know that a book can really change someone's life. And so to hear my story and what I've heard from so many people who have read the book is that, wow, I feel like you were telling my story. I feel like you got me. I feel like you were in there in these moments where I had so much shame and now I see how to get myself out of it. And so I feel pretty excited about this book and what it can really teach people, especially around this concept of becoming our own best friend.
In your book, you share about how you're empowering readers to say yes to themselves. What does that look like?
It's all those moments where we don't allow ourselves to be seen. In those moments where what I've seen with women and myself is like, oh, when I lose weight, then I will fill in the blank. Then I will go on that date. Then I will ask for the promotion. Then I will put myself out there. When my body looks a certain way, when I finally get things in control. And it's like we want to say yes to ourselves as we're in the healing process. And so it's all these moments where we say no to really who we are meant to be, right? Our authentic self. And so I'm always a huge encourager of people to say yes to themselves, not no, not later, not maybe some other time, but like right here and now. And that's what I'm doing with myself on a regular basis is really looking at like, where's my fear? What am I afraid of? And then how can I lean into that instead of leaning back?
Oh, I love that. I think that's so empowering. And, as the creator of Love Your Body, Love Yourself, you've spent 2 decades guiding people towards food freedom and body confidence. What would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned from this work?
I've learned how finding this space within myself where I can be kind to myself, where I can show up for myself. So instead of making myself wrong, instead of looking at my body and saying it's wrong, it's not where it's supposed to be, or oh my gosh, my food is a mess. It's actually having compassion and kindness. And so, when you look at my business called Love Your Body, Love Yourself, it's not like, oh, once you love yourself, then you'll love your body. Or once you love your body, you'll love yourself. No, it's about loving the fullness of who we are in every single moment. And so one of the things I've learned is that compassion can really heal, not as just an idea, but I've seen it over and over again in my own journey and with my clients on these moments where they're in deep shame about a behavior, deep shame about themselves, and how bringing in compassion into that moment can really begin to shift the whole story.
In your book, you talk about transforming from being an opponent of our body to an ally. How can people make the shift? I would think this would be very challenging for them.
Well, I think it's actually quite doable because it's a concept that I think that so many people can get their head around, get their mind around. When we think about healing any sort of trauma or wound or healing our relationship with our body and our food, and we're really fighting our body, we're really upset at ourselves. When we put it into these moments of thinking like, okay, what would my best friend do for me right now? If I was so upset, what would my best friend do if she were here? If he were here, if they were present? Oh, they would listen to my upset. Oh, they would feed me. Oh, they would be kind. They would be compassionate. They would actually lean in. And so, in every situation, we have often an inner critic, and when we can turn that inner critic into a friend, if we can stop saying mean things to ourselves and actually talk to ourselves the way a best friend would, it's literally in these moments, these small moments in our life, that we can begin to change how we are with ourselves. So we, instead of becoming our enemy, we become an ally. We become a part of the solution rather than we're constantly fighting ourselves.
Your book covers the role of intuitive eating. Can you share with us what that is and how it helps heal our relationship with food?
Yeah, intuitive eating, there's a wonderful book about it, and there's a lot talked about with intuitive eating. And there's different ways of thinking about intuitive eating. But I think it's when I bring it up with a lot of clients, they're like, oh my gosh, if I listen to my body's just going to tell me to eat all the sugar and all the carbs. I can't listen to myself. I need to have boundaries. I need to have structure and systems set up and all that. And it's actually knowing yourself so well that maybe you do need some structure. Maybe you do need um, some things set up in the way that you eat, the way that you move your body. However, underneath the addictive voice, underneath the voice of the wounding, the emotion, the one that wants to emotionally eat and has to have the food, there's a true voice. There's a voice that knows exactly what would nourish. There's a voice that knows how much food would nourish. There is a voice that knows what kinds of food. There's a voice that knows how much, how little. And that's the voice we're wanting to activate. It was that we're wanting to presence. Now, it's not always easy to find that voice. And sometimes it takes some time to do that because there are so many of these other voices. But the body, oh my gosh, the body, it is the way when we connect into our body, when we allow our body to lead us, we can tap into our intuition. And that also goes back to being our own best friend and being an ally is by being willing to listen to our bodies, being willing and tuning in. That tuning in is the intuition. So lots of times for me, I didn't want to listen to my body. That was really scary, and yet it's a muscle. It's like anything else. Our intuition, intuitive eating is a muscle. And it's not about getting it right or doing it wrong. It's about being on the path where you're actually leaning into what your body wants and what it really needs rather than what you think and how it's supposed to look and what, Facebook and Instagram says and this diet and this thing. It's really about letting our bodies intuitively guide us rather than this external idea of what we think we're supposed to be doing.
In your book, you explore the emotional connection to food and body image. So, how can we begin to uncover and heal the deeper emotional wounds that we might be carrying?
So when people come to me, they're often really upset about the fact that they're emotionally eating, they're binging, they're purging, they're dieting, they're obsessed. And a lot of them are upset because maybe they've gained weight, or they just know that the obsession has actually nothing to do with the food. Now, some people don't, right? For me, I didn't realize for a really long time that my relationship to my body image, and my relationship to food had nothing actually to do with that. It had to do with a deeper connection to myself. And, some people will say, well, I don't have any huge trauma. And it's not about having huge trauma. Now, some people do. Some people have deep wounds from childhood that are very much connected to their relationship with food and their relationship to their body. And some have these woundings along the way. And I think everyone can admit that, there are times in our life where we're not met the way that our body, our being, our soul has wanted to be met. And sometimes food becomes the coping mechanism. Sometimes dieting becomes a coping mechanism. And so one of the things that I've noticed in my practice is that there's a deep correlation between nourishment and love and food and control, right? Those are big ones around food and body. And so when can literally look at the food stuff and have, somewhat of an idea of how that wants to look, but we can turn our attention to the wound, and through self-compassion, through story, through Reiki, through spiritual practices. And that's one of my biggest expertise is really finding what is connected to the food, connected to the negative body image, and heal that. And when that is healed, oh my gosh, just so much of the food stuff and the body stuff begins to make sense. There's more compassion available. And deep healing happens not just around the body looking the right way, or the food being the right way, but actually a deep, deep healing, and that can be so powerful. I know it has been for me, and I see it time and time again with my clients.
I really have to applaud you. Your book is so well written and has so many great tips. And one of the things is that you encourage readers and our listeners to embrace movement as a tribute to their bodies. So, how is this different from traditional fitness or exercise routines?
Well, you know what? It could look like fitness or exercise. It could literally be like, I'm going to go for a run, right? However, when we come to our bodies and we force ourselves around, and that's what I did. I was an exercise bulimic, which means I ate food and then I would have to move my body to try to get rid of those calories. And gosh, is that so not fun? That the disconnection to the body and the sacrifice of the body. And so movement can literally, as you were saying, as a tribute, it's connection. So lots of people are walking around and they're just in their mind. They're walking around as literally bodies and they're just up in their head. But when we can connect into our body, that's where the intuition lies, right? So when we begin to move our bodies and in pleasurable ways, some people are like, I don't want to exercise. I was like, that's okay. You don't have to. We can even take that whole concept of exercising, put it over on the shelf, and let's think about, how do you like to move your body? Oh, I like to roll my shoulders. Okay, roll those shoulders. Okay, let's move a little bit more, right? And then literally get into the body in a more organic way. Maybe that's dance, maybe that's stretching on the ground. But I'll tell you what it isn't. It isn't being in the mind. And I think that you probably agree with me when we need more people in their bodies and and people out of their heads, right? Because sometimes the mind just does not lead us down the right road.
Yeah, that monkey mind can get us. And
Totally.
I like how this really dovetails with my next question for you, because I know you emphasize slowing down and breathing and feeling, even when discomfort arises. So, could you walk us through a simple practice that we could use throughout our day?
Yes, so I think even we really need to connect when we're in that discomfort. And sometimes that's how the body gets our attention, right? It's just so many people talking about being anxious and having anxiety and not knowing what to do in those moments. And so one of the things that I love to do, and we'll just take a moment here, just go ahead and close your eyes if you can, if you're not driving. But if you're even with your eyes open, just place one hand on your heart and literally feel the connection with the hand touching the heart and feel the flesh and feel your heart beating. And now notice your breath. And you don't need to change the breath. You just want to notice it. You want to get intimate with it. You want to notice it coming in and be aware of it going out. Feel it coming in and notice it going out. And what you may notice by even just bringing your attention to it, your breath becomes a little bit longer and it becomes a little bit fuller and a little bit softer all at the same time. And what I love to do when I'm really swirling around is do this simple practice. And then I'll say to myself, and I invite you to say this: I am here. I am here. I am here. I am here. And if your eyes are closed, go ahead and open them. And then just look around you. Look over to the right, look over to the left. You can look behind you, the corners of the room or wherever you are. And just notice that this is where you are in this space and time. And feel the earth below you. And you can even look up and now and see the heavens above you. And what I find, Marianne, is by doing that simple practice, it helps us to get grounded into this moment right here. Because often when we're swirling, it's either we're in our past, we're in the future, and we're in this anxious, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. That if we can bring ourselves back into this moment and say, I am here, here's my breath, here I am in this room, and I am safe. I'm actually here right now, and actually everything's okay. That can really go a long way.
What an impactful, just short meditation that was. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. You could really feel the energy shift.
Good. Great. Thank you.
I know earlier you mentioned how people feel like they can't, in many ways, like live life or be happy until there's a change in their body. So, how can you help? How would we help people who are looking to embrace and celebrate their bodies as they are now?
So this can be a really tricky one. So sometimes our bodies get our attention, right? So sometimes people are like, I just want to lose weight. And how it's not necessarily about the weight that they're losing, but they're actually realizing that they're actually not in their authentic body. Their body, maybe they're emotionally eating, or maybe they're binging, and they know this body is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable because I know it's not the body that I'm supposed to be in. There's something wrong, right? And so I just want to acknowledge everyone who may say, there's no way that I'm going to be comfortable in this body, right? And there's a lot of people that have that feeling. And so honoring and acknowledging your the understanding that you may be there right now. However, there is a difference between liking our bodies and loving our bodies. And we may not like what we see in the mirror. We may not like what our bodies look like now in comparison to 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But we do need to love our bodies, and we do need to have respect for ourselves. We need to have the respect for our body by listening. How does it want to be fed? How does it want to be moved? Just the same way you would do with a friend. And I'm thinking even like an intimate partner, I think about my husband. There are moments that, I mean, gosh, I love him so much. And I always have so much respect and care for him. There are moments where I'm not enamored by what he's doing. I may not like some of his behaviors, but I always love him. And that is how we can lean into that idea of celebrating ourselves, is by leaning into having compassion and loving ourselves and having respect for ourselves the way that we would a best friend.
I notice you also defined self love, and I'd love for you to share what your definition is and how we can cultivate that for ourselves.
Self love is this kind of ooey wooey, just love yourself. Oh, self love, right? And it's such a big concept, and it's actually very simple in some ways. And the simplicity of self love is is simply being kind, simply caring for ourselves, simply being curious about even why we have certain behaviors that we don't like, right? We may not like that we're doing certain things, but we're literally leaning in and being like, "Huh, I'm curious. Why do I keep shoving this food in my mouth, for example? Why?" And when we have that, we have a little curiosity, and then that compassion can show up. So I think about self-love as it really is this big, beautiful energy that we literally can tap into as we tap into prayer, as we tap into spirituality, as we tap into our higher power or our higher self. And it can be that big concept, but it also can be um, very simple as being nice. Can you just be nice to yourself? That goes a long way,
There can never be enough nice people around, especially
right?
for being nice to ourselves.
I think we need a lot more of that, Marianne. I really do. I think that I think and I think it's a concept that we're not always taught, right? We're not taught when I work with a lot of clients, they'll say, I wasn't taught how to love myself. I was taught how to put everyone else in front of me. And so teaching them what that even meant. And oh my gosh, the fear of that, the fear of like, I'm allowed to put myself first. What does that even look like? And do I even have permission for that? Right. And so it's leaning into that. And this is the thing, the more that we love ourselves, the more that we teach other people that we give other people permission to do that. So I have found that the more that I adamantly say that I love myself, and I adamantly say that I love my body, especially in this world where people are cutting themselves down constantly over and over again. It gives them permission to say, "Oh, I want to be able to do that. And I think I can. Oh, I love myself right now. Oh, yeah." Because I want the younger generation, I want my nieces, I want my son to know that it is so important that we have so many people walking around with a love for themselves. Can you imagine what that would do to society? What that would do to depression? How that would change literally our lives and the people. I mean, it would just change everything. Our culture would be completely different if there were a lot more people who loved themselves and cared for themselves.
For those folks that have tried countless diets and feel like they've just been stuck, what would you say would be the first step for them in finding freedom with food?
Well, I would say congratulations. You're finally realizing that dieting doesn't work. You are finally hit the rock bottom that's actually often needed within the whole diet culture. Because what happens is we keep going down this road of dieting and fixing and dieting and changing and thinking that it's going to somehow we're going to get it right this time. But we're down the wrong road. We're like down a road that is full of pain and shame and guilt. And we're not understanding why we aren't feeling better. And so there's a whole other way of being. And so what happens, Marianne, is lots of people are either in the diet culture, in the dieting, the fixing their body, or they're in the ethics, right? They're in the, like, it's black and white. And it's just like, I'm just going to eat whatever I want. I'm not going to listen to my body. And then there's a lot of the overindulging. But there's actually a middle ground. And that's what I teach. There's a middle ground, and that's where the listening is. That's where the connection to the body is. That's where becoming your own best friend is. That it's not about having and overindulging, but it's not about the restriction. It's a beautiful road. It's a beautiful road to live on, to wander down, because this road is full of connection with self, understanding the body, understanding what the body needs as far as nourishment, understanding why you're not having freedom with food and what the wounding is around that, and how to connect to the self in a really loving way. And so I often get people come to me when they're at that point, and I'm always like, welcome, welcome. You are in the right place.
I know your book highlights the importance of grieving intentionally. Why is grief a real necessary part of this journey?
Well, I think that their grief can show up on this journey with our food and our body, because there is sometimes this over expectation that we have of ourselves. And we have an expectation that our bodies are supposed to be a certain way. And maybe it was for a moment in time. Or maybe you're in a different cycle in your life. Maybe, like me, you're in perimenopause, menopause, and you're not in your 20s. And so there's literally a moment where we must grieve in order to create space for our true authenticity. And often grief is also something, I mean, for a lot of people, there's a lot of grief in their life. There's loss, there's pain. And that is an emotion that can really take us down quite a road of healing. And when we embrace that and we welcome it from a place of, I welcome the fullness of all my emotions, rather than I'm feeling uncomfortable and now I need to shut that down. Because if we're not acknowledging the feelings that are here, what I see is most people are emotionally eating or emotionally dieting over that. So grief is one of those big emotions that needs to be addressed.
What would you like readers and our listeners to take away from your book, Befriend Yourself?
I'd love for them to understand that A, I get it. B, they're not alone. There's so many people that, even the ones you think have it going on with their food and their body, are probably have a little bit of go, maybe struggling. So to feel and understand that their pain, they're not alone in their pain, and that they don't have to suffer. They don't have to have some huge eating disorder before they actually get help. That by leaning in and saying, I want to heal my relationship with my body and my food, is going to impact your whole life. It's going to impact your relationships. It's going to impact the way you show up. It impacts everything. So don't wait until you are in the depths of despair. Know that right now that you're worthy to get support and you're worthy to get help. And it is my hope that the book brings you some of those insights and brings you some of those moments of connection with yourself. The way that you would connect to your own best friend, you can connect to yourself in that way.
Well, Marla, where can our listeners and readers connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about Befriend Yourself?
Great. Yeah. So I think the one stop shop is my website, loveyourbodyloveyourself.com. You're going to find my book on there. You're going to find my free gift, Breaking the Cycle of Emotional Eating, which is a course for anyone to sign up. And also, I'm on Instagram, Love Your Body, Love Yourself Always, YouTube. I have so much content that you can dive into that I hope will support your journey.
Well, Marla, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you so much for having me. Love and light to everyone.
Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Mary Ann, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Mary Ann is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Mary Ann will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmaryann.com for more information.